Good morning to all the educators here today. It is so good to have you all back on our webinar series. For all of you who have been coming and attending all our webinars, welcome back. Lovely to have you all back on this platform. And for those of you who are here for the first time, I promise you, you all are going to enjoy the next 45 minutes of the session that we are going to have, and I'm sure you will have a lot of curious questions to ask. Before I move on to introduce our guest for today, let me quickly go through the entire flow of the event. I'm assuming most of you have been here, and so I need not introduce myself, but still I'll go ahead and do it if some of you are here for the first time. My name is Rashmi Furtado. I'm the senior editor of the Teacher.in magazine. Today's webinar flow is going to be in this manner. In the beginning, we will have our speaker, Balasubramanian sir, who's going to speak for about 8 to 10 minutes about the power of questioning. And after that, Giri Pickbrain is going to quiz him on the power of questioning. Hence, the title of this entire session, Bala quizzes Bala. It's two Balasubramanians actually who are going to talk to each other. Well, one is a Balasubramanian and the other one is a Balasubramanian, but very few people understand that difference in the name. Let's move on. Some of the generic rules that we have of this entire session: all of your mics have been muted, so please don't worry about your voice not being audible or anything. Don't worry about that at all, because your mics have been muted from our end as an admin, and you will still be able to hear everything that we are speaking. Please make sure you're in a good network zone, because if your networks are not okay, then you will not be able to hear us properly. Also, if you are using your computers, your laptops, make sure you have clicked the computer audio. If you are using your phones, make sure you have clicked your phone speaker and microphone. Else you'll have a little bit of a problem to figure out how to hear the entire webinar here today. Moving on, the number that is flashing on your screen, +91 7619 550091. This is the number to which all of you can send your questions. Please WhatsApp your questions towards the end of the session, or through the session as well. You can WhatsApp your questions to this particular number along with your name and your city. And once you have WhatsApped your question here towards the end, the editor of Teacher.in, Varsha Prasad, she will go ahead and she will ask your questions to our speaker, Balasubramanian sir. So please take a note of this number again. I repeat, +91 7619 550091. Let me now move on to introducing our speaker of the day. First of all, we have already maxed out a capacity of 500 participants here on the Zoom platform. Nevertheless, we have this entire session live streaming on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, which is the Teacher.in. The Teacher, T-O-T-in, that is how it is spelled. So you can go ahead and just go to our YouTube channel and you'll find the entire session there. And whether you are here on the Zoom platform or watching it on YouTube, you're free to ask questions and your questions will be conveyed depending on the availability of time. So you don't need to worry about that at all. So here we are with an unprecedented response for this particular webinar. We have people from Germany, from Philippines, from Kuwait, and all over our country, India, watching this particular webinar here today. And we have received questions from all over the world as well. And what also happened was one of our colleagues from Germany ended up telling us that her husband is a student of Balasubramanian sir, and there was a bit of an excitement. So while most of us here in India think of him as an Indian educator, I think he is actually present all over the world with his students. And wherever he is, and there is some sort of an excitement when people get to know, okay, Bala sir is going to speak here today. So there are people logging in from all over the world to just listen to Balasubramanian sir. All of us, or most of us, know him as a leading educator. For us at Grey Caps, he has been an amazing guide and a mentor. He's an amazing storyteller. I'm sure most of you who have attended his sessions will agree with me on that. And he has such thoughts and such amazing thoughts on education that if we implement all of those thoughts, I'm pretty sure that most of us will be very happy with what we are doing when it comes to education. Moving on, he's been our mentor for a long time now, and he's been a mentor for us for the teacher.in as well. For the webinar series of the teacher.in to also take place, Balasubramanian sir has been a very, very great motivator for us. He was the one who told us that we must do something like this for the teaching community. So today we have our opening batsman, as Pickbrain said last time, taking over the stage, and post that Pickbrain would be quizzing him on the power of questioning. Without further ado, Bala sir, I request you to please take over and start the session. I think we need to unmute his mic.
I think my video is. Hello? Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
If you could.
Your video is on mute, sir, at your end.
Let me try.
At the bottom left, if you could just start your camera.
The message is you cannot start your video because the host has stopped it.
Okay. Listen.
Online or check or through the video time.
Well, good morning, everybody, and it's a great pleasure to be with all of you today, sharing some of my views and concerns. Well, at the outset, I would like to thank Giri, the international quiz master, who is basically a specialist in quiz, that the art of questioning, and the man who is a leader in the art of questioning, going to be quizzing me, going to be asking questions to me. He is known as a Pickbrain, and he is going to pick my brain today. And I think that's a context in which we are having an interesting conversation. Well, friends, my memory goes back to my own days when I was a teacher in the classroom. Say somewhere in late 70, early 70s, right, when I was a teacher. And I remember that the moment I used to enter my class, the children used to be very naughty and they say, "Sir has come, please close your books." Because normally teachers say the teacher has come, open the books. Now my students used to say, "Close the books." And immediately somebody will say, "Sir, quiz. Sir, today we talk about this." In other words, I have always loved being in the environment of quiz, because I've always found that the relationship between the teacher and the child through a process of questioning really developed the bonds between the teacher and the child. Normally the process of questioning is a process of investigation. Let me start, as Rashmi told me, I'm a storyteller. I'm going to start with a small story that it's not a story, it's something which really happened in my classroom. And my memory goes back to somewhere in 1971 when I was teaching in one of the classes in Kendriya Vidyalaya in Trichy. It was ninth class, and I was teaching a chemistry topic, and the topic was about petroleum and its fractions. When I was teaching, one of the students was very naughty, who is known for interrupting the student teacher frequently. He stood up and asked me a question. He said, "Sir, why do we use petrol or diesel in the motor car? Why don't we use kerosene?" I was just taken aback because I didn't expect this question. And to be very honest to you, I didn't have an immediate answer to me, but somehow I managed to give the answer in a while, saying that, kerosene has got a long chain carbon atom, whereas with the long chain carbon atom, the calorific value will be low, the fuel value will be low, therefore it cannot be used. So I patted my back saying that I've answered the question. Immediately he stood up with another question. He said, "Sir, if you say kerosene has a long chain carbon atom, why don't you use methane as a fuel in the motor car? Because it has got only one carbon atom." I was absolutely, dumbfounded, and I didn't have an answer. But somehow, everybody was looking at me. All children, naughty children, were looking at my face, and I had to manage an answer. So most of us, whether we know the answer or not, we try to manage an answer, and that's the environment of a classroom. And that's exactly happened. I said, carbon has got, C12H4 all put together, 75% carbon. Somehow I managed an answer to give. Until today, I don't know what the answer was, right or wrong, right? And when I silenced him by saying that there was carbon, he again stood up with a question. "Sir, if that's a problem with methane, why don't you use hydrogen as a fuel in the motor car?" I was absolutely shocked. And fortunately, by God's grace, the bell rang at that time. And I said, "Next year," and walked out. Right? But then, next day when I entered the classroom, I found on the blackboard there was a statement, a newspaper cutting which was pasted, which read, uh, hydrogen as a fuel in the motor car. And he had come totally prepared, and I was shocked. And today when I look back after 40 years, that when I find that the buses and cars in Delhi and other places are going along through LPG, methane, or whatnot there, I look at the student, how intelligent he was. In other words, normally when questions are asked, because we don't know the answer, we try to silence the children. But I think that's where, the art of questioning comes, because questions, Rudyard Kipling, I think I can go through my slides also, right? Rudyard Kipling, who was a great poet, Rudyard Kipling comes with a very beautiful poem which says, "I keep six honest, uh, yeah, that's it. I keep six honest serving men. They taught me all I know. Their names are what and why and when and how and where and who." I think that speaks volumes of what should be the process of learning, right? If you really look into the development of knowledge across the world, be it in the Indian environment or be it in the Western environment, questioning has been the foundation of construction of knowledge. If you look at all our Vedic Upanishads and all that, you will find that all these were questions and answers. For example, if you take Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, that was indeed a question and answer session between one of the most eminent women scholars of the world, Gargi and Yajnavalkya, and you find question answers were the foundations for logical analysis of knowledge, logical analysis of wisdom. Similarly, if you the Upanishad, when you talk about Kena Upanishad, the very term Kena really means questioning. Why, how, what? I think so. The entire construction of knowledge has been in the Indian system, has been based on the answer session. And similarly, when you go to the Western model, you have the Socratic model, where Socrates was known for the kind of questions he used to face. As a matter of fact, Socrates used to say that the objective of a good question is to provoke another question, right? The question doesn't really mean that it should have an answer, but the question should be so beautifully designed that it leads to yet another question. And that's how, when we talk about deep learning is nothing but an exercise of questioning the question and then going into, knowledge construction. And I think that's the beauty of, the questioning. Next slide, please. Right. So if you look at, Voltaire, one of the greatest thinkers of the world, he said, judge a man by his questions rather than by his answers. I think that's a very important statement. Normally, we try to judge our children by the answers rather than by the questions they ask. I think questions are foundations of the, curiosity, and questions have got, a lot of meaning. A question can be used to test the knowledge, to assess the knowledge, to examine the content of knowledge, to to investigate knowledge, to provoke knowledge, to challenge knowledge, and also to interrogate the people. So there are several types of dimensions of questions, and that's where the beauty of questioning comes. Question is not a flat statement. Question has a, what do you call, geographical context, cultural context, and also social, economic context, you see. And therefore, we normally try to put what is called, evaluate all children in the same yardstick, and therefore we fail in really trying to test the knowledge of the children, right? So we need to judge the children by the type of questions they ask rather than by the answers that you give. They have good, exercise on knowledge construction. I remember a very interesting incident. When I was a teacher, I was invited by the Madras University to an exercise called micro teaching. Now, the challenge given to me was that I should develop a concept, a topic, given 10 minutes and about 10 children before me, without making a statement. I should go on asking only questions, and based on the questions, the concept should be built up. And the topic that was given to me was, manufacture of ammonia. So I don't have to ask make a statement. I have to only go on asking. It was a beautiful exercise to me. I think that's how I got really engaged into a form of interaction in classrooms, where questioning skills became very important. Unfortunately, we forbid children asking questions. Now, for example, when you look at the primary classes, children ask not because they want knowledge, but because they are curious. So the questions are born out of curiosity. Now, when they come to class 3 to 5, they are in search of something, in search of knowledge. So you find that the questions asked by them are seeking clarifications, seeking explanations. But when you come to class 6 to 8, now they start thinking. And therefore, the questions that they pose are questions which which are very challenging to teachers. Probably you may not be able to give a correct answer. And I think I have in my own class, situations, failed so many times with my inability to give a right type of answer, and that we don't have to regret about it, because in the current scenario, the knowledge is developing so fast that we will not have all the knowledge at our domain. And therefore, friends, remember one thing: we are in the process of co-construction of knowledge. Questioning facilitates co-construction of knowledge, and I think that's how the teachers need to go ahead with the art of questioning. Next slide, please. So, a very interesting statement by Dad Benash. I love this statement when I looked at it. He said, science never solves a single question without raising 10 new ones. I think that's the beauty of science. It's not, see, for example, when Newton, started doing his experiments, it is the number of questions that he had really, made him find so many answers, right? For example, when the apple fell down, right? Everybody has seen the apple fell down, but there was a person who was willing to raise a question why it fell down. I think the entire science, rather matter of fact, I won't call it science. The scientific thinking is basically based on questioning skills. And I think whether a child pursues a science course or a technology course or a literature course or a history course, scientific process is very important. So therefore, questioning really helps in developing a scientific spirit and scientific, scientific method of approaching problem solving, critical thinking, etc. So I think a good question raises 10 more questions. That's a beautiful statement by Bernard Shaw, right? Next, please. So, next, please. Richard Feynman, who was a great quantum physicist from America, he made a beautiful statement. I would rather have questions that can't be answered than answers that can't be questioned. What a beautiful statement. I think that should be very often what we look for through our question is an answer. One of the things which are really hinder the system of education in this country is why normally I say what's called right answer syndrome, right? If the child has a different answer, alternate answer, we immediately come with our red pen and say that this is not correct. And probably, we don't analyze, allow the child to have an option, right? I think that's where the beauty of knowledge construction comes. Many of what so-called right answers have failed the test of time, and they have gone through different modes of knowledge pursuit in the days to come. And therefore, I think we need to, in our classrooms, be it primary or middle, we need to debate our children when they do something wrong. Instead of condemning them, instead of criticizing them, we discuss with them what made them go wrong, what was their line of thinking. And I think that really makes a world of difference. Knowing what kind of mistakes a person has done is a beautiful way of knowledge pursuit, rather than simply accepting from on a top-down approach. That's what my teacher has said. And a number of things children accept even without knowing why they are so. I think our mode of teaching science has to undergo a tremendous change. It has to be a classroom where questions are asked. Mathematics, again, questions are asked instead of simply asking statements. I think that is going to be the future. I'm sure the children of the future are not going to simply take down what we are going to say, and the questions have got so much of power, right? And it's not the children who have reproduced answers and got a 90%, 100%, but children who are challenging the teachers, who asked very difficult questions. They have really, come out in life and done much better than others. Next slide, please. So as I said, the questions have got different focus. I said it can be used for testing, assessment, examination, evaluation, provoking, challenge, and all that. When you look at, for example, a board examination question, these questions in a board examinations are used for qualifying a person, certifying a person. But when a child is appearing for a national talent search examination, those questions are used to find aptitude of the children. But when the children appear for an IIT or JEE examination, they are used to challenge the children so that children with analytical competencies are able to come through. So when you appear for an interview, the questions are asked to test your skills. So the questions have got a context. It is not a person is able to answer the question or not able to answer the question. The ability to answer a question depends upon the aptitude, the pursuit of the child. And therefore, a good teacher has got to be, a person who sets very good questions. When I had the privilege of studying papers early in 70s, I used to think that to set one paper, I used to take about 9 days. It's not that you got a free period and come and sit down and write a question paper and give it. That doesn't make a sense. As a matter of fact, a question has got different dimensions. Constructing a question has got different challenges. Just like when you talk about verbal question means it's not only the language that you use, the vocabulary that you use, the tone, tonality, and accent. All these things matter in a verbal question. Similarly, in a written question. Can we move to the next slide, please? So, what is the objective of a question? A question is a tool of inquiry and investigation. Please remember, a question is not meant to for a recall. That's the lowest level of the objective of a question. A question is a tool of inquiry and investigation of knowledge, understanding, application skills, all that which are all defined by the Bloom's taxonomy. Therefore, in setting a good question paper, teachers should be able to have various types of questions which test them over there. It has to be framed in a context and setting. When you set for a midterm exam, the context is different. When you set for a final exam, it is different. When you for an admission test, it's different. So a question is a question is always for a predetermined purpose. Whether you are going to admit a child or a pass a child or what you filter a child. So all these have to be kept in mind in setting a question paper. And basically the objective of a question is to collect the evidences. Evidences of what? That you should know. Evidence of knowledge, evidence of understanding, evidence of skills, all that, whatever is listed in your academic proficiency, you must be able to. So all that leads to the mechanics of writing a question. Right? Next slide, please. The mechanics of writing a question. Next slide, please. Yeah. So when you want to test a question, you can question what is a term, right? Normally, people ask, define what it is. That you can ask a question to find out a fact, concepts, principles, processes, themes, right? So for every type of a question, the kind of vocabulary that you needed, the kind of the directional stimulus that you need is entirely different. So in setting a question paper, a lot of application of mind is required. To me, setting a question paper for a KG class 1 to 2 class is much more difficult than setting a question paper for class 11 and 12, right? Because the children are they are very curious, and they have got different types of imaginations. Every question is a stimuli, and every stimuli has a response, right? When the children grow up and attain a particular level of maturity, you can anticipate a kind of response, but not when the child is very young. They are very emotional. Therefore, the kind of questions that you need to develop are to be entirely different. We'll come to that a little later, right? Next, please. So when you write a question, remember the syntax of a question is very important, because I have found working with the examination department for years and years, I have found very often questions can mislead to a different answer. There are questions which you can get duplicate answers, right? Because a question creates a perception, right? And perceptions lead to differentiated meanings. Therefore, the syntax of a question is very important. The vocabulary, every word is a chosen word. In a question, the words cannot be replaced. That's the importance of the words there. Directional stimulus. What is the directional stimulus? The words that like you, what, why, how. You can't replace what from why from when from how, because everything has a different meaning, So setting a question paper is very important. Sometimes, teachers tend to set a question of, scoring. Oh, I will see how many people will answer this question. I'm going to, no, that's not the correct mode. Scoring objectivity, right? A good question, even though it may not follow a normal distribution curve, very often studies have shown that in an examination, that normal distribution curve can be skewed either positively or negatively, depending upon the nature of the questions that you have. So I don't expect anybody to have a normal distribution curve, but at the same time, it should not be highly skewed negatively or skewed positively. Therefore, the teachers need to address the mechanics of writing a question paper. I think, very often, I see I mean, children are very good enough to ask us. I remember a couple of decades back when examination question from the board came, that the exam was over. When I was walking down in Delhi, one child made a remark. this question paper has been set by a person from Chennai. I was surprised. They said, Deco, first the comprehension is from Mahabalipuram. The second question, the address is given in Chennai. All these indicate that the paper setter has been from Chennai. So these kinds of the personality of the teacher is revealed through a question paper. Very often I say question paper is an ambassador of a school to the community, to the parents. Parents assess the quality of a teacher, the quality of a school, and the quality of pedagogy in the school by the type of questions that are being set. Next, please. Next, please. So, friends, I'm just going to give you a very simple example to you. Now, there is one single concept. Remember how the same concept can be evaluated differently. Now, look at here. Name 3 conditions necessary for germination of a seed. It's a very simple knowledge-based question, right? Now, look at that. Why air is necessary for germination of a seed? This calls for an understanding. If seeds are sown very deep, they do not germinate. Why? Right? This really you need to have a deep learning and understand the concept very well. Last one, if there is a heavy rainfall immediately after sowing the seeds, what would be the effect of the germination of seeds? Critical thinking. So very interestingly, the concept could be the same. You can set the question paper as a rote learning question, as a simple recall question, as a simple knowledge-based question. So a number of ways you can set the question in the same paper on the concept. You can never think that this question is only for knowledge. That's for understanding. The skill of a teacher is all that's important in setting a paper, right? And to be very honest, I've always found setting a multiple choice question is the most difficult thing, because it's not A, B, C, D that you have. It is not either this or that you have, but the 4 very good choices that you make. Normally, the 4 differentiators for a multiple choice is that the first choice is visibly incorrect. Second choice is appears to be correct. Third choice is apparently correct, and fourth is correct. So finding out those differentiators which make a lot of difference is very important. Question setting is both an art and science. Next. Next, please. So friends, well, before I wind up, I just want to tell you that important thing is not to stop questioning. That's what Albert Einstein said. When your children ask a question, please encourage them, right? You may not know the answer, right? Let me share a very small experiment with you. When I was a teacher, I attended a training program. I think it was the year 1974 when I attended a training program. 35 of the teachers attended, from which nearly 20 were from physics, and 8 were from chemistry, and 7 were from biology. All of us, as we entered, were given a small white sheet of paper, and we were told that there are 2 stools kept at a distance of 15 centimeters, and we will have to make a bridge which will withstand the maximum weight. Well, we never knew how to do it. We are folding the paper this way or that way, but really don't know what the concept is, right? Friends, remember that with a single paper, you can set hundreds of thought-provoking questions. So friends, I think we need to have a paradigm shift in our pedagogy, where we adopt to an investigation method, question-based approach, so that our classrooms are more engaging and active. Thank you, and I leave it to Giri to ask questions.
Thank you so much, sir. Truly delighted to have you on this session. Our intention was to start the series with you, but wonderful to have you with us. I must admit I'll have to draw all my quizzing skills to quiz someone like you. But I want to start with perhaps what is a very, to make a session like this lighter, a question that has come in as you were speaking. It's from a teacher in Baroda, so let me just lighten the session as we welcome all the teachers on this forum. Her question is, Bala sir, what is the secret recipe of your youth?
Well, I'm not going to say what cosmetics I use or how many times I go to a spa. Certainly not. But let me tell you, to me, the recipe for what I am today is my passion, right? I have always wanted to be passionate about what I do. I want that I must enjoy what I do, whether it's a classroom or any type of work I do, because passion is something that sets a fire in your belly, right? Defining passion, somebody said, when you set yourself on fire, people love to come and see how you burn, right? So when you set yourself on fire, when you are at your work, people want to come and see how you do your job. I think that's exactly what all of us should be doing, whatever job we do, whether it's a classroom, whether it's on a table, or whether it is on a field. I think we must enjoy what we do, because passion drives your dopamine, and dopamine drives your energy, and your energy puts you into action, and your action gives you the happiness. It's not the reward that you get, the compensation you get. Unfortunately, we all link the type of work what we do to a compensation, to a reward, or an outcome that's going to come. And I don't think that gives you the energy. The I have always loved that, when I go to a training program, after the training program, when people come and tell me, sir, we are very happy about the program, I used to tell them, I'm not worried, I'm not bothered whether you are happy or not. I'm bothered whether I am happy or not, right? Because the most important thing is we must be committed to what we do. And that spirit if we have, I'm sure all of us will be remain, because we remain young, because mind is only, the mental age is more important than your physical age. At 70s, I still want to be younger, right?
So, I want to first acknowledge one thing before we move on. I really want to thank the overwhelming participation we have, and for this webinar, for the consumption of everybody. We have a full 500, of course, in this Zoom room. We have over 700 people or 800 people on YouTube. So that's a cumulative of about 1,300 people that you are currently addressing. Not just from India, we have people who have logged in from Germany, Kuwait, Philippines, Singapore, and Qatar. It's truly a tribute to the kind of a teacher that you are. I think Rashmi was absolutely right. We perhaps restrict ourselves geography by saying Indian educator or educator in India. The footprints of what we leave behind are far more than our geographic borders. I think truly a tribute to you, sir. Moving on to a slightly more objective route on the power of questioning. Harvard once published a paper by Professor Alison Brooks on the power of questioning. And she speaks about how professions like lawyers, journalists, and doctors are actually trained in many countries to ask questions. But world over, we don't train our teachers to ask questions. What's your reaction to that, sir?
Well, this is a cultural phenomena. We talk about nobility in the profession, and sometimes nobility and humility are, associated with the power of silence, the power of acceptance, right? And therefore, this has more of a cultural context. But to be very honest, asking questions has to be the fundamental training for in teaching. Our teaching methodology has to, go. And as a matter of fact, there is no evidence in the entire teaching curricula whether they talk about the kind of questions, right? So I fully endorse that when you teachers prepare children who become lawyers, judges, marketing people, administrators, who go on, scientists who go on asking questions, probably because they have not asked these questions in the classroom. That's why they are asking questions outside, right? So I think it's very important. That's exactly what has been the focus of my presentation, that teachers should start enjoying questions. As a matter of fact, teachers should also ask questions which provoke children to respond. We need not ask questions to display our knowledge. Probably sometimes questions provoke them to come with an answer. Sometimes it's very good for teachers to say, sorry, I don't know this answer, right? I think that's a kind of conversation the teacher and the child should have in a classroom. That's why I use the word co-construction of knowledge. So long teachers believe that they're deliverers of knowledge, you have a problem, right? The moment you say that they are co-constructors of knowledge, they work together, they question together. I think that was our Saganavatu, Saganabunakku. What was all that? That was because we worked together, right? I think we need to bring the paradigm shift back to an interactive classroom rather than what do you call a teacher-dominated classroom.
So true, sir. In fact, just a couple of days back, we had Dr. Kamala Mukunda addressing all the teachers. And for all the answers that she gave, the teachers on the chat room, etc., the best answer she gave was for a question where she said, I don't know the answer. So, she received a huge applause for that. I think that's a beautiful message you are giving. There's a very nice question that I have from Ms. Malati from Germany. It's an interesting one she had sent us. How do we re-inculcate the art of positive questioning in the young minds in our country to create visionaries? India has a long and rich history where our sages, etc., and all the thought leaders of the past, even our political leaders of the past, had the ability to ask deep questions. Is that an art that is dying?
Of course, yes. As a matter of fact, I like the word positive questioning.
Yeah.
Right? See, the whole problem has been that we talk of teaching. I think that term is, to me, a very injurious term, because teaching is associated with a process of knowledge delivery from top to bottom, right? So when you refocus it on learning, and today the brain scientists very clearly say that learning cannot be caused, learning can only be facilitated. So when it comes to children asking questions, they are in the process of learning, right? So when they ask a question, that too a positive question, when you ask, I'm not talking of questions which sometimes children ask in a very naughty manner to, harass a teacher or tease a teacher. No, but there are questions which children ask very many times. I think I recall a very interesting incident which I read in Science magazine about a boy in a classroom, sixth class. The physics teacher comes and asks a question: how would you measure the height of a building using a parameter? Right? Every child writes an answer, and for one child, the teacher gives a 0 mark, and that boy goes and asks the teacher that my answer is right. The teacher says that your answer may be right, but that's not what I want. Right? Now, in that country, there was a provision that you can have an arbitrator who will decide who is right or who is wrong. So the arbitrator came and gave the boy a white paper and said, in the next 5 minutes, you will write the answer. After 5 minutes, the boy comes with a blank white paper. He doesn't have an answer. The arbitrator says, you seem to be naughty, you don't know the answer. But the child smiles and says, sir, I don't know. I know many answers. I don't know which answer you want. Right? Now, the arbitrator asks that, many answers, how do you say that? He says, yes, sir. Well, I go to the top of the tower and then hold the barometer. I tie a rope to that and allow the rope to fall down. I measure the height of the rope. That's the height of the building. I take the barometer to the top of the building, right? And I attach a pendulum to that, allow the pendulum to oscillate. From the amplitude of the pendulum, I calculate what is the height of the building. I take the barometer to the ground floor, find what is the value of G on the ground floor, what is the value of G on the top of the floor. From that, I calculate what is the height of the building. Sir, I take the barometer, walk each floor and find what is the change in the barometric units. From that, I can calculate what is the height of the building. So there are many words of doing that. And finally, he says, sir, this is lunchtime, probably you are hungry. So when you go back, there is a storekeeper who knows the correct answer. You can give the barometer to him and tell him that you tell me the correct answer. That's also a correct answer. So the question basically is, this anecdote is attributed to Niels Bohr. Well, I don't know whether it's true or wrong, but the question is attributed to Niels Bohr, that a particular question can have any number of answers. So the child asks a question, and very often those questions is a challenge to the teacher. And I think in all humility, we should be able to accept, that challenge, and encourage the child to continue to ask the questions, right? And I think that is the entire philosophy is nothing but a sequence of questions. The entire science is nothing but seeking answer to a series of questions, right? So I think, we are doing a great injustice by not letting our children ask the questions. The question from Ms. Malti is absolutely right, that I would request the teachers not to bother about a board examination in class 3, 4, and 5. After all, they have to appear only in 10th class. Now, you encourage your children to be open, freedom to learn, freedom to experiment. That's more important.
Sir, on the same context of, why we don't really have a culture, especially in, our countries where we don't ask questions. There's a beautiful question I have received from Mahadevan. He's actually part of the leadership team of TCS Intelligence, something that's very big with schools. But I look at him more as an educator than someone who's handling a program. This question is beautiful, and it says, we have a culture in India especially, where we are taught as youngsters, while we are curious, to not question elders. Is that what pans out for us, to not ask questions in schools?
Partly, yes.
I'm not sure that tradition continues. My children ask me a lot of questions.
Partly, yes. The reason is this culture doesn't start necessarily in the school. This culture starts right from home. As a matter of fact, I always used to say, in most homes, children are brought with fear, right? And negativity. When the child is in the process of growing, we say, don't do this, don't do this, don't do that, don't do that, don't go there, don't go here. In other words, we always start with don't, right? Now, we tell the child, after 6 o'clock, don't go, you will, there is a tree and the ghost is there. If you don't take the food, you create a sense of fear amongst the children right from the beginning of the age, and forbid them mentally, to come with their true self. And I would say that both home and parents and teachers are equally responsible for that. At home, the sense of insecurity parents have, that they want their children to be safe, and that's the reason. And then and also to promote obedience amongst the youngsters. And when it comes to the school, 2 reasons: that the teachers want to complete their curriculum, complete their syllabus, and therefore they think that this is an intervention. The second is that they feel that their inadequacies may get exposed in many cases, and therefore they don't let people go. So when a good teacher, a confident teacher, and a teacher who is wanting to improve on knowledge, will be able to say, your question is a fantastic question. I wish I only knew the answers, but let's try to find it out. You find tomorrow, I'll find it tomorrow. Let's come and discuss it tomorrow. I think that should be the spirit.
Okay. So I have another question, which is something that has been on my mind. The new Socratic method, as people call it, and so on, is today, questions are largely based on the content that is delivered to the children. One can call it textbook, one can call it anything, but it is curriculum, whatever it is. We largely frame our questions based on the content. But in your opinion, for better learning outcomes, should questions or questioning methodologies be based more on types of learners?
Yeah, you are absolutely right. You are absolutely right. As a matter of fact, the people don't understand what is a curriculum. People are very often mistake a textbook and a syllabus with a curriculum, and therefore they try to restrain all their questions to the textual material, right? I remember a very interesting incident of a teacher from Delhi, when she had to take her children for a visit to Qutb Minar, and the next day there was a test. She probably announced that tomorrow's questions will appear from your visit to Qutb Minar. So all mathematics questions came from that. You can set a question paper from a, World Cup cricket, World Cup, soccer. The question is that you need to take knowledge beyond the textbooks, right? I think that's where we have really missed the bus. For example, very often in interviews when I sit, I ask a question to the teachers. I'm sorry, I'm very frank about it, that why the water in mud pot is cool, right? People don't know the answer. But I ask them to explain what is evaporation causes cooling, they will answer it. Because evaporation causes cooling is in the textbook. And cooling of water in a mud pot, is different. So expansion of knowledge, right? Application of knowledge and questioning, that's what we call metacognition. Metacognition is questioning the knowledge itself, questioning the fundamentals of knowledge. I think that's the way where we need to improve. And curriculum is not a textbook, right? Curriculum is a process of opening knowledge to a universe of its operation, right? So curriculum is associated with a set of experiences. And I think through the knowledge, the teacher should expose them to experiences. As a matter of fact, I must say, in primary classes, when you talk about types of learners, primary classes, there is a huge scope for setting questions based on multiple intelligences, right? Now, the question is multiple intelligence cannot be taught, but through questioning, you can develop all types of intelligences. For example, you have in class 1, you have what's called a chapter on birds, you have a chapter on flowers, you have a chapter on food. Every chapter opts itself with a variety of questions which promote multiple skill intelligences. Similarly, in class 6, 7, 8, you can have a number of questions based on emotional intelligence, right? Because emotions are part of the affective domain in learning. So I think to restrict questions to textbooks is the greatest sin we would be doing. That's an injustice to the next generation.
Okay, sir, I have a question that has come from Mr. Chandrasekhar of the Jain Group.
Right.
And he says, while all of us do advocate to our teachers to encourage children with open-ended questions, how do you manage it in a class environment typically like India, where you have a lot of students?
Well, that's a very interesting thing. But the question is, the moment you said open-ended does, you need not be assessing the question. Open-ended questions could be to provoke a discussion, to provoke a debate, to examine a logic, right? Now, the question is, if you want to assess everything, for example, you have a piece of art, and if you start assessing that art, you have a problem. You have to enjoy the art. Similarly, when you ask open-ended questions, you get perceptions, you get opinions, you get views. You celebrate the opinion, you celebrate the view, and you democratize the process of learning. I think the objective of this open-ended questions is to encourage democratic learning and value others' opinion rather than to assess whether it's right or wrong. So if that's your objective, you will do very well whether the number is 40 or 100.
Well said. So true. Sir, I have a question from a very leading educator, Rama Ranganathan ma'am. She led a fantastic school in Bangalore. She's a very respected educator. She has a provoking question. She says, is it realistic to have an integrated classroom to enabling questioning? And in an online environment that we are speaking today, can online classrooms promote learning with different age groups?
Why not? Why not? See, the question is, knowledge is perceived by people at different levels, depending upon their aptitudes, depending upon their learning competencies, right? So the same piece of knowledge can be examined in, at different levels. For example, in US, there are students who are doing mathematics, studying in class 6 and doing 9th class mathematics, right? There are, students, doing a course on astrophysics when they are studying in 9th and 10th class. This is not a part of the curriculum. So I think that's really what we call integrated and open-ended learning. In other words, unfortunately in India, we don't understand the term integration. Integration there is something called convergence and the other is called integration, right? Integration is something which happens at the fundamental level, and convergence at the superficial level. I'll give you a simple example to you. Long back in 70s, when we got the subject of integrated science, NCRT came with a book and for integrated science in class 9. The first chapter was energy, right? The first top paragraph was on mechanical equivalent of heat. The second paragraph was on photosynthesis, and the third paragraph was on chemical energy. Now, the three teachers came and said, physics teacher said, sir, first paragraph is mine, second paragraph is biology teacher, third paragraph is chemistry teacher. We don't see energy as a concept, running concept, right? We see facts, we see information and restrict it. And that's where the whole, integration doesn't happen. It's only convergence that's happening around. So I think, integration, the question Mr. Maranganathan asked is a very interesting question. Learning, for example, when you talk of a child of class 5, 6 going for a concert on a stage, which a person who has done an MA in music cannot do, how do you define that, right? So age has no barrier. It depends on aptitude. It depends on knowledge. It depends upon facilitation and promoting that.
So, continuing on the talk that you gave, you spoke of multiple intelligences. But if we really see the way the world is moving and the direction of global education is moving, do you see the power of questioning becoming even more important as we are slowly gravitating towards a deep learning era?
Absolutely. Absolutely. As a matter of fact, the future of classrooms is going to be not on the typical classical mode of delivery. The future of classrooms is going to be on problem solving, critical thinking, and questioning is all going to be there. The teachers, the children don't need a teacher to explain what is a Faraday's law. It's already there on the net, right? The children don't need how ammonia is to be done. The children don't need a teacher to read with the phonetic correctness the daffodils song is all there, right? Now, what am I going to get from the teacher, that extra knowledge? I used to say that the future schools are going to be knowledge caves. Knowledge cave, what is that? People come and share their knowledge, debate over that, and try to assimilate info. So acquire knowledge. So, the process of knowledge management, knowledge acquisition, knowledge management is going to be entirely different. Teachers will have to play the role of knowledge resource managers. That's what's going to be the future, right? To tell the children. And when it comes to multiple intelligences, as a matter of fact, all of us have got, if not all the 10 intelligences, depending upon the priority, we have at least half a dozen intelligences available. And depending on the context, we access that particular type of intelligence over there. And all these intelligences come to our help at some point of time, somewhere or the other. Therefore, we need to facilitate development of all these types of intelligences. And that's possible only when you provide exposure to the children. And exposure not to the content, but exposure to a variety of experiences. Thank God CBSE is focusing on experiential learning, right? And I want to tell you that unfortunately, the idea of experiential learning now applies to a conditioned environment of what kind of experiences the teachers want to give, the schools want to give, rather than what kind of experience the children bring with them. I think what needs to be is that children acquire the experiences, come back and debate with the teachers on the strength of these experiments. I think that's where the future comes through. So, to put it very simply, over the last decade, we had nearly 70% of all our knowledge coming through formal mode, 30% coming from the informal mode. In the future, we'll have 70% of knowledge coming from the informal mode, 30% for the formal mode. So my teachers need to find ways of energizing informal knowledge with the formal knowledge, so that this is going to raise a question. This is going to raise the question of the validity of the content, the truth of the content and its application. And that's what the teachers are going to be problem solvers. And this scenario is going to increase more with deep learning, with machine intelligence coming through. There's a battle between the human intelligence and machine intelligence, which is going to be more powerful. Therefore, if the human intelligence has got to be more powerful, more authentic, more questions have to be asked. Machine intelligence is not going to ask you questions, but human intelligence has to ask questions. How do I sustain my power over the machine intelligence? That's the future.
So your answer provoked another question in me. You spoke of critical thinking. And there is so much today being written as if critical thinking is a very modern trait. And if you actually look at it, it goes back to a lot of our Vedas or scriptures. Everything was based on critical thinking.
Absolutely.
What's your view on that? I mean, it's a very old Indian, way of looking at things.
Giri, let me tell you, a couple of years back when I was talking to one of my the professors of a very senior institute of management, when I asked him some reference books that on lateral thinking, analytical thinking, parallel thinking, critical thinking, he said, if you want lateral thinking, please go to the stories of Tenali Rama. If you want analytical thinking, please go to the stories of Akbar and Birbal. If you want stories of critical thinking, go to Vikram and Betal. And if you want to have creative thinking, go to Panchatantra, right? All these were the stories which were facilitated different types of thinking in order to ask. Thinking is not a new concept. So right from the time the man started observe the fire from two agate stones by Mugi, bringing them together, the concept of thinking has been there. And I think there is an evolution that's happening around. That old order changes giving rise to the new. And that's had been the trait of the development of human, the Homo sapiens and the human knowledge. And I think the entire structure, right from the Stone Age down to what you call the information age or the wireless age, what you call, it has only been an answer to the innumerable number of questions that humans have been asking amongst themselves, within themselves, and with the nature.
Beautiful, beautiful thoughts, sir. In fact, teachers, I want to share something with you at this juncture. One of the objectives of the teacher.in is to actually help teachers to improve their line of thinking and perspective. In fact, Bala sir writes every month for us in the teacher.in. We've got lovely people writing in. But as teachers, I would really urge all of you and all of us to actually inculcate some time in our lives to read. The teacher.in itself could be a starting point for you. The magazines are free online. Just download it. Balaspeaks.in, which is Bala sir's website, is a wealth of information. He puts up everything that he writes absolutely free for us. If we can inculcate that kind of reading habit, I think we become thinkers. And when we become thinkers, we analyze things critically. I just was tempted to make that comment. We've got a host of questions coming in on the chat box as well, sir. One comment which has come in, though I may have wanted to keep it for the end, but I don't want to miss it. Someone has texted saying, Bala sir, as a chemistry teacher, is doing complete justice to today's topic. He has analyzed the chemistry of questioning beautifully. So that's a nice comment that is coming in from a teacher. And I'll get Varsha in. I think she's got a whole burst of questions with her. Varsha?
Thank you, sir. Like Mr. Giri mentioned, I have a lot of questions here. I'm still deciding and shortlisting the questions for you. But let me begin with this very interesting question that I received from Miss Amruta from Pune.
Yeah.
She wants to know what is the difference between assess, examine, and evaluate.
Assess, examine, and evaluate.
And evaluate, yes.
Oh, fantastic. You see, when I say, when I meet somebody and I say he's a good person, right? Why do I say he's a good person? I know him, I have assessed him, he's a good person. But that doesn't really say that there's no proof to say that he's a good person, right? But then when I say, when such and such situation happened, this is how he did it. Therefore, I can certainly say that he is a good person, right? I have evaluated him against a norm, against a yardstick. the difference between assess and assessment and evaluation is assessment could be objective and subjective, whereas evaluation has got to be objective. It cannot be subjective. Evaluation is always done against a benchmark, against a norm, against a set, but assessment need not be. Okay. The third thing, examination is a process. Examination, is a process to either assess or to, evaluate, right? The examination comes with a set of tools, right? These tools may be applied for assessment or this way, right? So basically, assessment and evaluation both are examinations, right? But in different contexts. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot. The next question is from Dr. Satya Ramesh, a principal from Gujarat. He would want to, his question is, there are a lot of teachers and educators who do not like students questioning, meaning they are very apprehensive to take questions from students. So how should we overcome this attitude?
It's a very simple thing. These people are self-defeatists, right? I put them self-defeatism, right? In other words, they are what do you call scared of what children will think, what the principal will think, what others will think. They are unwilling to progress or unwilling to upgrade themselves. So it is a psychological roadblock rather than an intellectual roadblock. So, the intellectual growth comes with, the psychology. For example, many people in science, they believe that literature is not my cup of tea. Literature people feel that science is not my cup of tea. To me, both are my cups of tea, right? The right brain works with the literature and the left brain works with the science. And to me, I can work with both, right? So these are all the psychological or some kind of misconceptions we carry about it. And I would very much suggest these teachers need to be seeing the light of the day. If they don't see the light of the day, you don't need a management. You don't need any system to put them in a dustbin. The children will go back home and say, "Mere teacher ko to kuch nahi aata hai." That's the future.
Correct. Thank you, sir. The next question, I have received the same question on similar lines from multiple people. They're asking, how can we decide whether the question is right or wrong? The next part of the same question is there anything called a right question and a wrong question?
That's it depends on the context. It depends on the context, right? So I'll put this way, a very simple thing. I don't know how many of you have read that beautiful novel by Jerome K. Jerome, Three Men in a Boat, right? Now imagine the three youngsters go to a funeral and they sing a song which is absolutely a comical song. And when everybody is crying, it's a moment that you ought to cry, where people are sad. They ask say something which is provoking the humor out of context. So right question in a wrong place and a wrong question in a right place is something like out of context. That's why I started right in the beginning that questioning has got to be, I'll give you an example to you. I remember, somewhere in the 80s, the teacher, the board, there in one English paper, the students were asked in 10th class a question that write a short note on the most ideal man I know, right? Now the question is, who is that ideal man? It's very objective, right? The question, anything can be written. So the question is, sometimes you open up questions in such a way that which can provoke right answer as well as the wrong answer. So that's why I said when I talked about at the beginning, the syntax of the question, the vocabulary of a question, the context of the question, all these things have to be, if you don't stick to that, the question can be either right or wrong, right? And please remember that there is a tendency on the part of the teachers to pick questions from some books and give it to the children. Sometimes the questions given in the book are wrong. I have faced an incident sometime in the 80s where a question was asked about construction of a triangle in a 10th class mathematics exam. And when the children were trying that question, they were not getting the arcs cutting with each other, right? And the question cannot be answered. and there was a hue and cry. But the teacher said that this question was found in such and such a page of such and such book, authorized book, right? But that doesn't justify the answer is right. Okay, you'll have to do it yourself. Similarly, before putting the question, the teachers need to know, you need a blueprint. You need to know what is the value point. Unfortunately, teachers set a question without sometimes even not knowing how many answers this particular question can gravitate. That's a problem.
Thank you, sir. The next question is from Mr. Tangadarai from the Presidency Group. His question is, how would you respond to a perception that art of questioning is to inspire in others the ability to visualize and interpret?
Can you please repeat?
Yes, I will go again. The question is, how would you respond to a perception that the art of questioning is to inspire in others the ability to visualize and interpret?
Of course, yes. That's why I said right in the beginning, a question is a stimuli, right? A stimuli attracts a response. And this response is based on the perception. And this perception could be positive. The perception could be negative. The perception could be artistic. The perception could be scientific. The perception could be centered culturally. All that leads to a kind of an imagination. And the child articulates the answer. Articulation of answer calls for a vision, a construction of a vision in mind. Unless you construct a vision in the mind, you will not be able to articulate. And therefore, he is perfectly right that a question is, you have to set a question which is an inspiring question. Unfortunately, that's why I said at the beginning that, I took 9 days to set a question paper, right? You write a question, just like, Bernard Shaw used to say, he wrote a story and tore it off 20 times before 21st time he put it on. Similarly, you write a question paper, do it once, twice, 10th time you see, you will see that you have done a mistake. That's the value of a question paper, right? That's why I said it's easy to give an answer, but it's difficult to construct a question.
Thank you, sir. The next question is from Ms. Sudeshna from Qatar. Her question is, in usual normal classroom settings, how can we get shy and quiet students to participate in question and answer sessions?
That's a very interesting question. Most of these questions, the students who are shy or who don't want to answer, they have what you call a kind of low self-esteem very often. They compare themselves to other children and they say, that boy answers frequently, I don't do it, so teacher. So your teacher should establish equity in the classroom first, should give every opportunity to, I have seen students who, who never spoke in the class, but after encouraging, they became great orators. So, every child has competencies, and these competencies are, curbed either because of a domestic environment or emotional blockage, or don't come out because of some emotional blandness. And when the teachers recognize them, when you give them a pat, when you give them a shabashi that you can do it, they will excel. And I think this is what is called positive motivation in the classroom. And that a good teacher needs to identify these children and put them across. Even if they are able to speak 1 or 2 sentences in the beginning, they have done the job. You are to break that psychological block in them. That's what's necessary.
Thank you, sir. The next question is from Dr. John Abraham from Tamil Nadu. His question is based on the recent implementation from CBSE to have experiential learning, active learning, and innovative pedagogies in classroom. So he says board has mandated the implementation of all these things. His question is, how will a math teacher teach who has no aesthetic sense?
I would agree with him that the math teacher doesn't have an aesthetic sense. To me, the very zero, writing a zero is an expression of aesthetics. Every number is an expression of aesthetics, right? So every addition, subtraction is an expression of aesthetics. So aesthetics doesn't mean that, you are only logical. Aesthetics expresses itself in several manifestations. I just want to give you a small reference to a beautiful experiment which was conducted in Stanford. People said that normally mathematics is a left brain activity and music is a right brain activity. And they just thought that those who sing well are not good in maths, and those who do maths are not good in music, right? But when they experimented with about 250 musicians, both vocal and instrumental, they found that in all those cases, the left brain was working much better than the right brain, because when they sang or when they played the instrument, it was their left brain, the raga, tala, arohana, purana, everything was computation of music, computation in the left brain. And therefore, all those who were good in music, the surmise was that they are good in mathematics, right? And those who are good in mathematics should consequently be good in music. I think these are all what you call kind of presumptions we have really got through, our mathematics doesn't mean doing calculus only. Mathematics expresses itself every cell. It's called the queen of sciences, every where it expresses. And I therefore would say that rather disagree that math students or math teachers don't have an aesthetic sense. You only have to provoke it in them. That's all.
Thank you, sir. I have 4 more questions to go. One of the questions is from Ms. Vasanthi from PSB School. Her question is, in earlier times, students used to ask interesting questions. But today, teachers and parents are more than happy if the notes have been given and if the child performs well in an examination. How will we change this mindset?
Well, that is where, the ability of the teacher to go beyond the textbook, right? To me, honestly, every 5 minutes, every period, the first 5 minutes, teacher should close the book and start discussing about a number of things related to subject or others, which gravitate the attention of the children to say that this subject has much more than what is given in the textbook. I think that's exactly the problem. We say physics means what is taught in class 8. That's not physics. That taught certain lessons of physics, right? Similarly, chemistry 10th class means, for example, see, when we talked about wetting and detergency in 11th class, right? It was a very difficult concept to say. But today, when you talk about corona, the need for what you call washing your hand with a soap, that basically depends on the what you call wetting and detergency concept. So I think you need to open it up contextually. Every period, every age, every year, you get new information to associate, construct new domains of knowledge. And that's why, as Giri pointed out very importantly, teachers need to read. Teachers need to open up their minds. To me, if I don't read half an hour a day, if I don't write half an hour a day, I think my day is dead, right? I think we need to, should not survive in the profession. We should live in the profession.
Thank you, sir.
Varsha, can I intervene?
Yeah.
Sure.
Sorry, because I have another question coming in from the PSBB group, this time from a very leading educator, Sheila Rajendra.
Yeah.
She says, students were encouraged by YGP ma'am 20 years ago, and she's a doyen in education, to actually frame questions. And when the teachers included that question in the question paper, they actually got extra marks. She's asking, in the context of online or remote learning, whatever we are experimenting, does it make it even more relevant to provoke thinking in children by asking them to frame questions, and for schools to include that? It will just encourage students to learn better.
Why not? As a matter of fact, I must tell, Mrs. YGP, as you rightly said, she was a differentiator in education, right? I remember a time when she was sitting in a session continuously for 8 hours to learn, from morning 8 to evening 5 o'clock, when a session was going on lateral thinking, even at her old age. That's the kind of people, that educators that we had. And with regard to the question Sheila has asked about, the art of asking questions, I said, why not? Why do you relate the performance of a child to an answer, marks given to an answer. That's not knowledge. That's replication of information, right? The question is, if the child is asking a question which is intelligent, which is provoking, I think that shows the curiosity and the performance profile of the learner. You should award them for the right questions rather than the right answers. Why not?
Varsha, go on.
Okay, yes. This question is from Ms. Kala Mohan. She was the speaker of the previous webinar that was held by the teacher.in. Her question is, in India, if the teachers are suffering from the right answer syndrome, how can we get rid of it?
It is a revolution to say, because the moment my teachers are going to get out of the right answer syndrome, I'm sure, my apologies to the principals, they are going to tell them, please fall in line. Okay, number one. And even if the principals say, immediately parents will say, ye kya ho raha hai? To apna, you are not, evaluated the notebook. So I think what we need is to bring about a paradigm shift in the thought process of the children. This is where I say that schools need to educate the parents more rather than the children, right? Frequent interact, because today parents come to the school to fight for the fee, whatnot. As a matter of fact, periodic meeting with groups of parents who are very concerned about education to bring a paradigm shift in the thought process is very, very important. As a matter of fact, 2 days back, I was seeing a small video from somebody who, a parent, I think it was a doctor, and who was talking that many parents were criticizing the teachers who are doing an online classes. They don't have the pronunciation, they don't have the accent, this, that. He said, I don't want any third person, including a doctor, to come to a surgical theater when I'm doing, because that affects my confidence. Similarly, I think a situation has come that anybody on the road can criticize a teacher. I think that's a very unfair situation that's happening around. We should restore the respect of the teaching profession. That depends on how we deal with ourselves and deal with the parents. I must say that Kala is doing a great job of educating the parents. I've been on the Facebook a number of times, and she should continue to encourage other schools also to encourage parents to think differently about education. Education is not certification or qualification. It's human making of the human.
Thank you, sir. Dear teachers, I'll be taking only 2 more questions now. The next question is from...
I have one after you. Go ahead, Varsha.
Yeah. This question is from Ms. Sridevi. She asks, when I ask a question, my coordinator says, I didn't understand, everyone else did. How to overcome this issue?
This is just mostly an ego problem. It's not that they don't understand, right? And it is not necessary for anybody else to understand the question so long the teacher understands the question. Because this teacher is asking the question, the child is going to answer the question. And so long the question is not having a negative sentiment, so long this question doesn't have a retrograde effect on the school or the learning situation, the coordinator should give the freedom to ask a question. As a matter of fact, that's one of the tragedies in our classroom situation. I've been very highly allergic to the concept of lesson plan. Lesson plan was good enough with the Bloom's taxonomy. But today we are in a world where we need dynamics in education, vibrance in education to control all learning to a lesson plan and standardize excellence through mediocrity. I think that's very unfair. I'd be happy with the schools where principal says, I don't want a lesson plan, but teach the children with interest so that the classroom is a fantastic theater, right? That should be the spirit of the future classroom.
Can I ask?
Yes.
Okay, sir, I have a question from Sumitra Raghavan, again, a very senior educator, built fantastic schools through her career. She says, is it very important for our teachers to reflect on the questions he or she has asked in a classroom in order to refine it the next time they ask it? do they just stick to the same questions and never refine them?
That's a tragedy. That's a tragedy. As a matter of fact, every question once asked, it needs refinement, right? You cannot ask the same question. As a matter of fact, whether I'm not only talking in terms of syntax and the vocabulary and the structure, but even in terms of a conceptual design, every question needs to be refined periodically, right? And that shows the evolution of the teacher, right? The teacher is evolved to the next plane of the thinking. And I think, therefore, as a matter of fact, that the idea of looking back to the last 3 years question paper and preparing the children, I think that's the worst thing that could ever happen, and the tragedy of in learning, right? I must make a small intervention. I saw in the chat box a very interesting question.
Okay.
Yes.
And from one Mr. Parsardi, who said, is there an unanswered question? Right? Not one. There are many. As a matter of fact, every question is an unanswered question. The moment it has an answer, that means that the end, right? Knowledge has no end. So the moment you say that that is an answer, the answer is a base for another question. That shows that there are, what do you call, series of unanswered questions available. That is the very basis of metacognition. Asking every question and questioning the question is metacognition. And that's the foundation of every philosophy.
Thank you, sir. Last two questions from my end.
I had one more, Varsha. This is can I?
Yes, please. Go
Yes, yes.
So this comes a little differently in context, but I thought it's important. It comes from a journalist. Okay. And he says it's a beautiful topic you all are discussing as educators, but in the context of what we are discussing and encouraging teachers to do, are we fortunately or unfortunately moving into a new world order where asking questions is seen as a bad trait or non-conformance? A very large question.
Yeah. I rather would not totally agree to this situation. The question is, the people who think that it is non-conformation, not conforming to certain traits, they are people who believe in authoritarian leadership, who don't believe in participative leadership, who believe that the entire wisdom is on their shoulders, which is not true for anybody, for that matter. Therefore, I think these are very individual cases, and the days to come, it will be the people who question will be identified, recognized, rather than people who give answers. That's the future.
In fact, he carries it with a line which says, are they trumping the questioning process? And I'm sure there's a lot of pun in that line.
Well, neither I can't answer this question, which are different contexts.
Yeah. What's your question?
Yes, this question is from 2-3 teachers. They want to know how to change the students' perception on why teachers ask questions, because most of the times they think it is punishment. I have the same question from 3-4 teachers.
I don't think you need to change the perception of the teacher, the students. You have to change your perceptions, right? Now, if you change your perception and then accommodate the students, for example, the moment the child thinks that asking a question is a punishment, that really means you have created a climate that you ask questions only to people who whom you want to punish. That's a psychological climate you have created. I think the onus lies in you to retrieve the position and to create a conducive environment where children feel happy about asking the question.
This is my last question, and this is a little interesting. This question is there a possibility where we can have a section in the examinations where students are expected to ask questions than answer?
There is a proverb in English: if wishes were horses, you can ride on them. right? We are a kind of an education system which has been highly conditioned. It wasn't earlier, right? But with institutionalization of learning, right? We have become a conditioned system. Actually, looking at the process of learning, learning was never institutionalized, and it is not institutionalized. Education is institutionalized. Let's make the difference, right? If you want to learn, you don't have to go through the institution. The doors, the whole universe is open to you for learning. But if you want to get so-called education, right, in the modern terms, you get into an institution, right? And I hope this answers your question.
Thank you. Well, I do not have any more questions, but this one has come from a teacher who has not shared his or her name. He says, or she says, I have this question. When will schools resume in India realistically after this lockdown? When do you think schools will resume in India realistically after the lockdown?
God willing. Well, I think the sooner than the later, things are changing, and I'm sure next 2-3 months we'll be back to normal. We will be back to normal, but with the new normal.
Yeah.
Okay.
So thank you so much. We are on the dot at 12 noon. Varsha, you got a couple of your certificate announcements to make.
Yes.
And then we'll...
Before I make the announcement, Bala sir, thanks a lot. It was a very informative session. I'm getting to know that through the questions I'm getting and through the interaction that you had with Mr. Giri. Thanks a lot for the session. For teachers out there, thank you for taking part, for showing us that you love us and showing us that you really do enjoy our sessions. Thank you. The mandatory announcement, we will be giving away certificates to all those teachers who participated today. I kindly request you to please share your complete name and the email ID and send it to anu@greycaps.com for your participation certificates. We will take a week's time to compile the names and get back to you, as we have more than 1,000 people participating. So please do send across your complete names as you wanted to appear on the certificates to anu@greycaps.com. Thanks a lot, Mr. Giri, for you. I hand it back to you.
Thanks, Varsha. Thank you so much. I don't think we could have had a better webinar today, because the number of participants, the range that Bala sir handled, perhaps explains to all of us as teachers, how, like we started with the first question, what is the secret recipe to his youth? I think the sheer childlike passion that he still shows to be a teacher is probably what gives that energy. It's truly humbling, wonderful to have you, sir. Thank you so much for your time and for being a huge inspiration to the teacher.in, specifically to these two young girls who've done such a wonderful job with that magazine over 6 years, Rashmi and Varsha. And to all you teachers, please, whether it's balaspeaks.in, the teacher.in, the magazine, any reading, please make that a habit. And from all of us at teacher.in, it's going to be a very different year as we move forward. So we're going to take a break on our webinars after today for about a month or a little more than that. We'll be back with you with more webinars once you settle in to quote unquote the new normal. And we certainly will be back. We've also got a small little survey that Varsha and her team will be sharing with you. Your feedback is very, very important to us. The email ID, I think a lot of you are texting for the email ID. It's anu@greycaps.com. Am I right on that, Varsha? Anu is the person. Yeah, Anu. Please mail anu@greycaps.com. Teachers, we at the teacher.in, we also truly, thoroughly empathize with you that you are one community which has probably had its worst summer vacation this year. We salute you. It is not easy. We know what teachers have gone through this summer. You've had families to balance, your own children to balance, learn and create PPTs, prepare for the new normal, manage online courses. I don't think much has been written or spoken about this effort that the teacher community of India has put in. We really salute you at the teacher.in, and we wish you a wonderful year ahead. We are with you on this journey. perhaps outside the classrooms and outside the schools, which is today becoming the new classroom. So perhaps, you know, the very boundary of a classroom and a school is changing in a paradigm way. But sir, there are amazing messages that we are getting, and profound ones. Some of them saying, sir, we wish you a very long life so you can be with us every year and guide us the way you have done this. I think they're very touching messages. We haven't seen these kind of messages before. It's really touching. It's really overwhelming. But to all you teachers over the last 1 month, we also did something very consciously. We did not want to create webinars which is trying to make you improve on what you are good at. That was not our intention. Whether it was bringing in someone like a Kala Mohan ma'am to speak on a very different topic, or a lawyer to speak on understanding the digital world, though that probably will go down as the most scary session we've all attended. It's really become very, you know, scary to even use devices. And finally, from Dr. Kala Mukunda to Balasubramanian sir, I think it's been a phenomenal journey. Thank you, Rashmi. Thank you, Varsha, for leading this initiative. Truly, truly appreciate the amount of effort that you all have put in. Poor Varsha has been sending out invites even at midnight, you know, to try and catch up with the mail so that it's not, you know, off in the morning. Then we automated the process. But none of this would have happened without the enthusiasm and participation of you teachers. I know we've taken 2 hours away from your time consistently in all this paucity of time that you had, but we only hope it's been worthwhile. On that note, wishing all of us a wonderful year where all of us are going to be learners while we are teaching. That's going to be the key as we move forward. Balasa, we'd like one last message from you to all our teachers before we sign off.
Well, I think they asked me that how I maintain my youth. I wish each of them is young, passionate about what they do. Nobody can give you your childhood except your children. So go and enjoy your classes. I don't think that you need any medicine in your life. So long you go and enjoy your classes, be passionate about what you are doing. Thank you very much for passion listening. I hope to see you more times along with Giri on the. Meanwhile, my website is available to you, balaspeaks.in. You can always you are welcome. Any topics you need, please feel free to write. Thank you.
Thank you all, teachers. Thank